Hello everyone, VGC Mike here, back again with more Regulation I content. Today we are going to go over the results of the Victory Road April Challenge, which was actually in the Regulation I rule set. This took place on April 5th and 6th, so it was a 2-day tournament. There were 263 players, which is definitely the biggest tournament that we've had so far. I mean, we're only a few days, really, or a week or so into the format, but still the first big tournament we've had so far. So what I want to do today is go over some of our top Pokemon and top teams and see how the metagame is starting to look. Starting with the winner, first team that we have here is the first place team, and Calyrex Shadow and Zamazenta Crowned were actually the ones who won the tournament. The team, it does what it it does what you would probably think it does looking at the Pokemon that are here. You have your, some of the best Pokemon ever made as your supporter Pokemon. You've got Incineroar with Fake Out, Parting Shot. You've got Rillaboom with U-Turn and Fake Out. So you have your Fake Out brothers, and they can pivot in and out. Incineroar has Intimidate. Rillaboom has Grassy Terrain for terrain control and to help heal up Pokemon that you have on your side of the field. Of course, it's going to heal to your opponent's Pokemon too, but usually one way or the other, you're thinking that benefits you more than it does them, or at least you want something that helps deal with Miraidon or get rid of Psychic Terrain so you can keep using Fake Out. And then the main two Pokemon here, you've got Calyrex Shadow with Nasty Plot, so you're going to set up a Nasty Plot to try to pick up some big KOs, or you're just going to try to get KOs and clean up with Calyrex Shadow. And because of his Grim Neigh ability, he just gets +1 special attack every single time you pick up a KO. So you can either snowball Calyrex into just winning the game, or you can set up Calyrex and just take big knockouts. Really up to you, and basically you should probably form that game plan based on the type of Pokemon you see on the other side of the field. Obviously, if you think something has like a Focus Sash or something like that, you're not going to necessarily benefit from the Nasty Plot immediately, because you won't pick up a one-hit KO either way. So you might try to break something like that with a Fake Out. And then Zamazenta's here kind of for two reasons. Usually the Wide Guard is very important in mirror matchups because Astral Barrage is going to threaten you with a big KO. And then the Body Press actually covers for all the Pokemon that do not get hit by Psychic and Ghost attacks very hard. So Normal is immune to Astral Barrage. Body Press is super effective against normal types. And then Dark is immune to Psychic and resist Ghost. So Body Press is super effective against Dark Pokemon. And then lastly, you have an Ogerpon who, offers solid damage in Ivy Cudgel. You also have Grassy Glide that, becomes priority with your Rillaboom's Grassy Terrain, and Follow Me to help protect your Pokemon. So you can either protect your Pokemon and set up your Calyrex with Follow Me, or with Fake Out, or potentially even with Wide Guard, and then you win the game with your Calyrex Shadow. And then worth mentioning too that because Urshifu has the Unseen Fist ability, that means you can't protect in front of him and actually be immune to his damage. So combination of Fake Out and Urshifu is also very good. So a few different ways you can run the team, but primary game plan, I'm assuming, is Calyrex Shadow, set him up, and pick up KOs. We also have similar team in 4th place. So it looks like they replaced Rillaboom with Amoonguss, and Pelipper as a secondary Wide Guard user, and another way to power up your Urshifu. This Urshifu also has Taunt and is Mystic Water rather than Scarf. And they put the Assault Vest on the Incineroar, which is very cool. And then with Terra Fairy, that's interesting. But same set on the Zamazenta, Heavy Slam, Wide Guard, Body Press, Protect. And Calyrex Shadow, instead of Life Orb, is Focus Sash. They have Terra Ghost to boost their damage rather than using the Life Orb. And then they're rocking Disable, probably intended for Wide Guard, but can be very good into choice item Pokemon too. So if you have a Choice Specs Miraidon, you protect, and then you disable it after it attacks, and it can't do anything for the rest of well, they can't do anything for a few turns until it switches out. But yeah, in a 1v1 situation, unless you're at your Focus Sash, this just beats any Choice Specs Miraidon. So that might be the thought process there too. Obviously, Struggle still does some damage, so if you do get brought down to your Focus Sash, then that's not going to work out super well. But yeah, I mean, this is like just auto win against Miraidon if they are down to their last 2 or 1 Pokemon, and the other Pokemon doesn't threaten a knockout on Calyrex immediately. Okay, so let's talk about the second place team. We have this is pretty interesting actually. Got Sneasler with Toxic Spikes and a Dondozo setup with Miraidon and Assault Vest and Calyrex Shadow with Encore and Life Orb. So looks like we have a few options here. This actually looks like a kind of a mesh between the Dondozo Miraidon team that we saw place in it placed in the top 8, I believe, of last year's Worlds. That was a Miraidon team with Assault Vest. It had Dondozo and Tatsugiri, and then it had like Terra Normal Extreme Speed Dragonite with Chiampao and Goldengo, I believe. And the Goldengo was like Terra Normal to help your matchup against Calyrex Shadow Rider. This team just uses Calyrex Shadow Rider, and it kind of borrows elements of like the Wheezing Dondozo team. But instead of Wheezing, you're using a Toxic Spikes Sneasler with Unburden and Electric Seed. So if you lead Miraidon... Oh, this is actually interesting. Well, I guess you don't need the Electric Seed to go off. But yeah, if you lead Sneasler and you want to have like some sort of Dondozo endgame, that means you're not bringing one of your restricted. Huh. So this team actually must have some sort of game plan where like they must see a certain matchup as problematic for maybe their Calyrex. Because there's no way you can bring Sneasler and your Dondozo Tatsugiri mode and bring all your restricted Pokemon. So I'd really like to know, I mean, I'm assuming the plan is to bring the Miraidon because they have the Electric Seed on Sneasler. Maybe that's like Zamazenta matchups. I mean, that would kind of make sense. Though I would argue you could probably deal with Zamazenta with Encore on your Calyrex. Yeah, that's kind of cool. The first time I looked at this, that didn't really cross my mind. But yeah, I guess maybe if you're seeing Zamazenta, you just go Sneasler plus Miraidon. If you take care of the other restricted Pokemon, Dondozo is very, very good into Zamazenta. So usually you just win because you ignore his defense boost, which means the body press doesn't do too much damage to you. And then you have a Chi-Yu you have your Chi-Yu as your 6th Pokemon. Choice Scarf just means that you're going to outspeed the Calyrex Shadow Rider, but also I'm assuming if you don't want to bring your Dondozo Tatsugiri mode, then this is actually a pretty attractive lead here. Chi-Yu, Terra Ghost plus Calyrex Shadow, 2 of the fastest Pokemon in the format with the Choice Scarf, and you could just use, double spread moves, Astral Barrage plus Heat Wave. If there isn't Wide Guard on the opposing team, that's going to knock out a lot of Pokemon. All right, very cool. Let's take a look at the 3rd place team. This is a Lunala Miraidon team, and the Lunala actually has an Electric Seed. So this actually looks like we have a Tailwind plus Trick Room team. This was getting pretty popular in Regulation G, and it probably has always been a thing as long as VGC has had these moves in it. Looks like you can go Trick Room. You'll probably bring your Miraidon and Lunala, plus your Iron Hands and your Urshifu. Urshifu's pretty decent in Tailwind plus Trick Room teams because it makes it so the opponent can't just stall out the Tailwind or the Trick Room with Protect. And you can EV your Urshifu's speed stat in a way where you can make that really awkward for the opponent. Plus, a lot of restricted Pokemon are either going to be really fast or really slow, so definitely a very good Pokemon in this type of team setup. And then it looks like if you don't want to bother with your Trick Room mode, you can go Whimsicott plus Miraidon. Then you'll probably bring Lunala because it's your restricted Pokemon, and then you either bring your Chi-Yu or your Urshifu depending on your matchup. And you know what, honestly, Iron Hands isn't super bad in pretty much any matchup. You could probably hypothetically not even bother setting Trick Room or Tailwind. Obviously, you don't have to do that. And just start blasting your Pokemon, or blasting your opponent's Pokemon, depending on what they're trying to do. Like if you're facing Cali Ice, for example, you don't want to set Trick Room because they're slower, and you don't need to set Tailwind because you have faster Pokemon already. So just start blasting with your strongest attacks. That might be a type of situation where you want to bring your Chi-Yu and just start dealing as much damage, make it as difficult as possible for them to get that Trick Room up. And then even if they do, you still have an Iron Hands, which if it's minimum speed does underspeed the Calyrex Ice Rider. So you're going to deal big damage with something like Low Kick in that situation. So yeah, this team looks pretty well rounded. I did see a lot of Cali Ice plus Miraidon on ladder. This probably looks like the closest I've seen to something like replacing the championship worlds team from this year, or the first place team from worlds this year, in a way where it feels very solid. A lot of the Cali Ice variants of this team I was looking at, it seemed like they were always missing something. Like whichever Pokemon they dropped, it didn't feel great to me. But this looks pretty solid, and obviously did pretty good because they came in 3rd place. Great stuff. Okay, we already talked about 4th place. 5th place was another Cali Shadow team, this time with Zacian. And actually it's an imprison Calyrex Shadow Rider. So this guy, yeah, they just want an easy win. Every time you're facing Calyrex Shadow Rider, you just, if you're worried about the speed tie, you bring your Tornadus, Tailwind up, Imprison. Calyrex Shadow is not doing anything after that. And then you have your Zacian as backup. So Zacian I could see as a kind of a cool combination on this team specifically because the Calyrex is the fastest restricted Pokemon. You have the option to Imprison to get rid of any opposing Calyrex Shadows. And then Zacian is the 2nd fastest restricted Pokemon. So there's no way that your opponent is going to have faster restricted Pokemon than you because you have your Tailwind and you're using the 2 fastest possible restricteds. So kind of a cool game plan there. Then looks like if you're going against Trick Room stuff, you're just going to try to beat them down with your Ogerpon Cornerstone, your Rillaboom, and your Urshifu. You're probably not bringing all 3 of them because of the fact that you want to bring your restricteds, but good stuff. Very cool. I'm wondering, actually we could probably look. Let's see. 5th place. Let's see how many. There should be the matchups somewhere on here. Here we go. Oh, here he is. Oh, he was actually the first seed. So he must have been either just killing it on day 1, or yeah, it would have been interesting to see if they placed a little higher how many like Calyrex Shadow matchups they had. I mean, it looks like they did lose the Calyrex Shadow. This was the 4th place team with the Pelipper. So maybe that double wide guard situation was a problem for them. Yeah, that would have been a cool game to watch. Done in 10 minutes. I don't know if that means that's how long it took them to build it, but probably means that they're winning their matches in 10 minutes because you're just using all the fastest, strongest Pokemon. Okay. So, 6th place. This is actually the team I am the most excited to talk about because it has Terapagos on it, And on my tier list video, I specifically placed Terapagos in A tier, even though there's a lot of talk about Terapagos not being very good. Well, it seems like a lot of people are reversing their opinions on this. And actually, to be fair, I had not started testing Terapagos until earlier this week, and I started having a lot of success with it. I'm using the same set here: Calm Mind, Protect, Terra Starstorm, Earth Power, and Calyrex Shadow Rider is the partner I currently have with Pagos. So a lot of people are saying basically that Terapagos isn't good because you have to Terapagos. I think what a lot of people aren't considering is, yes, you have to Terapagos, which in some ways you could see as like you don't have a Terra. But Terapagos kind of takes Terra away from your opponent too, because if they do Terra and you position Terapagos correctly, Terapagos will knock that Pokemon out most of the time. So it's not like you don't have Terra and they do. It's more like you both don't really have Terra, and you have this really strong Pokemon in Terapagos. And you also have the advantage against weather teams. Well, I wouldn't say you have the advantage, but you have the advantage of getting rid of weather teams' weather once. You can get rid of terrain once. You have a lot of specific things that if teams try to build too heavily around weather or terrain, it gives you that one option to kind of get rid of all of that. And not to mention the Calm Mind. If you set up a Calm Mind or two and you just target down their physical attackers, Pagos is going to win the game. I have not played dozens of games yet with this team, but it felt very strong and it's doing really good so far. I will say you've got Rillaboom and Cineroar, so you got the Fake Out Bros back, and it looks like this team has, obviously you want Pivot on both, so U-Turn and Parting Shot in this case. And then we've got Will-O-Wisp to help deal with physical attackers a little bit better, and Knockoff probably, to get rid of items, but also this just threatens a KO on a Calyrex Shadow Rider immediately. And then we've got Woodhammer and Grassy Glide with the Assault Vest and Rillaboom. And then we have Follow Me with Ogerpon and a classic Choice Scarf Urshifu. So solid stuff. This is a Nasty Plot Calyrex Shadow with a Life Orb. So it looks like either way, this team is probably looking to set up and sweep. There might be some cases where, honestly, when I was testing with Pagos, I never left Pagos behind, even when I was facing certain Zamazenta matchups. But yeah, I think he's a lot better than people realized. And honestly, I see why people wouldn't think he was good immediately. But I used Terapagos so much in Regulation G, especially towards the end, that I feel like unless you're playing him a lot like that, it's easy to see why people might think he wouldn't have been as good as he probably is going to end up being, because this is not the only Terapagos in the tournament. We have a Terapagos in 10th place, and we have a Terapagos in 13th place, 14th place, and 24th place. So getting a little bit more spread out here, but we're going to jump it down a little bit. This was really interesting in my opinion. Oh, this is the most common matchups actually. This was really interesting in my opinion. So these are the individual restricted Pokemon and their usage on day 1 versus day 2. So usually if you like the restricted Pokemon and you want to see more of it, or if you're trying to see how good it is, you want to see this number go up between day 1 and day 2. So Calyrex Shadow Rider, for example, there were 37.8% of them in total for the day 1 stats. Day 2, there was 53%. So Calyrex Shadow Rider had a good conversion for the people that chose to bring it to the tournament. A lot of them ended up into day 2. So if this was just like a 50-50 thing, then you'd expect 37.8% on day 1, then something similar on day 2. But because we see that number jump up to 53, that's saying that Calyrex Shadow is very good in this meta. Miraidon, even. Zamazenta also killing it. 26.3 to 34. Let's look at Terapagos. Now, this is a little tricky because Pagos has a semi-lower number to begin with, but going from 10% to 21%, I think that's pretty significant. I mean, it's only a 10% jump up, but that's double. That's double the percentage it started with. So, yeah, looking at this alone, I would say Cali Shadow, Zamazenta, and Terapagos, they look like potentially the best Pokemon in the format right now. And a lot of people, I think, were writing Terapagos off, but I think it's better. I mean, this clearly shows it's very good. And I think it just goes back to what I was saying prior, where Terapagos, yes, you do have to Terra it most of the time, but your opponent can't really Terra it either. And if they are getting away with Terraing, that means that your team isn't designed in a way where Pagos is taking advantage of that enough. And basically, I think that's why we're probably going to see these teams play out kind of like the old Terapagos team that had Heatran and Ogerpon, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu. And instead of the Heatran, we just now have a Calyrex Shadow Rider that is very powerful and very fast. So this is like your secondary option to sweep with. Again, I have not finished my testing of my Pagos team yet, but these four are present on my version of the team right now, and has similar elements over here too. So I think game plan number one is probably try setting up with your Terapagos, protecting it with Fake Out or Follow Me, and then you have Calyrex Shadow Rider to kind of sweep in the back. And there's maybe certain teams where you look at it and you're just saying, okay, I'm just going to immediately try to set up with Calyrex Shadow Rider instead. But that is my little side tangent on Terapagos, and very glad to see him doing good because I like playing Terapagos and I am excited to play that team or some version of it. And I should have a version that I have been cooking up ready to go relatively soon. Hopefully, it's probably going to end up being the next team on the channel because the second team I made was a Calyrex Ice with Miraidon team, but I still need to get my Calyrex Ice, and I'm working on finishing a second playthrough of Pokemon Sword, which is almost done. So I'll need to do that before I have my Cali Ice. So let's go on here. We've got our seventh place team, which is Calyrex. Oh, cool. This is what I've been using lately. Calyrex Shadow Rider plus Koraidon. Let's take a look. The Brute Bonnet is present with Rocky Helmet. That's cool. Sucker Punch, Seed Bomb, Rage Powder, Spore with Terra Water. This is what I've been using. I have two videos on the channel right now of me using a team kind of like this. They have a Whimsicott, which I think is a good call. Currently I'm using a Fluttermane. And okay, yeah, this is a little different. Composition's obviously a little similar, but definitely different items and stuff going on here. So their Calyrex Shadow has Life Orb and Substitute. So little protection, and you can avoid maybe some status conditions potentially. And then instead of the Life Orb and close combat, they're running Collision Course and Clear Amulet, which is a great choice in Koraidon as well. They have a Ditto with Focus Sash, so this can copy other restricted Pokemon. You can use this in Trick Room matchups if you want to copy a Cali Ice, or you can use this against Pokemon like Zacian. Zacian, when it comes in, it gets its +1 activated on its attack because of its ability. When Ditto comes in and copies Zacian, it takes that +1 that it already had, and then it gets the ability activated again. So basically, when Ditto copies Pokemon like Zacian or Zamazenta, it's going to get +2 attack or +2 defense, where the opponent's is only going to have the +1. So very good in those situations. You also have an item on your Ditto, where their item is their item that has them transformed into their crowned forms. So very cool for those types of matchups. And then Whimsicott for speed control, and we have a Chiyu with Dark Pulse and Snarl, probably for the Calyrex Shadow Mirrors. Very cool to see this team doing well. I've been enjoying my version of it. This team looks like it's very solid too. Good stuff. Okay, and our top 8 team is, this is looking a lot like Joseph Ugarte's team from Regulation G. It's actually an exact version of it. It's the same Pokemon at least, except Zamazenta is here. Classic Zamazenta. I can't remember which Pokemon that this would be replacing. Maybe an Urshifu. But yeah, you set up screens, and then you have a bulky, presumably it's a bulky Miraidon with choice specs. You can set up Quiver Dances with your Volcarona, which in certain matchups is a good way to try to win the game. And then you have your Zamazenta for Wide Guard and Body Press. Iron Hands in case Trick Room gets set up, or just for general Fake Out and strong Electric Terrain hitting Pokemon. Obviously with Quark Drive, you're going to boost your strongest stat, which usually is attack, and just start slamming things with Wild Charges and Drain Punches. So very cool. Our 9th place team is another Cali Shadow and Zamazenta team. Looking pretty similar, they just have Tornadus here. Well, let's take a look. Maybe this is the Imprison one. No, this one's running Encore and Focus Sash. And Choppleberry. So this Incineroar is not going to be knocked out by fighting attacks very easily. Choppleberry weakens fighting super effective hits. So very cool option there. Maybe in case they want to, probably for the mirror so they can survive a Body Press without having to worry about using Terra. But other than that, we have another Taunt Urshifu with Mystic Water. And we have... Interesting. Okay, we have another Terapagos. This one has Koraidon though. So this is Life Orb, Close Combat. Cornerstone, Ogerpon. Probably very fast Flutter Mane with Icy Wind and probably a lot of special attacks. It has the Focus Sash item. Calm Mind Terapagos. Interesting. You know, I think this probably works pretty good. You might think that the Sun is kind of counterintuitive to pair up with Pagos, but in most cases you are likely leading Pagos and setting up Calm Minds, so it probably wouldn't be that hard to Terra before Koraidon comes in, or to just bring Koraidon back in later after you may get rid of that Sun. And yeah, I mean, Koraidon is a very good answer for your main threat is Zamazenta, right? Because it has Wide Guard and it can threaten big damage onto you with a Body Press. So Koraidon's a great way to deal with that. And there may be a version of this team, maybe like a specific combination of Pokemon where you can leave the Pagos behind. I mean, these are all very good Pokemon, obviously. So maybe there's certain game plans where you just go all in on Koraidon Flutter, and then just bring in the Fake Out bros from there, or you have your Cornerstone, who is obviously very good, and the Sturdy basically gives you 2 Focus Sash Pokemon, so that's probably pretty annoying for a lot of people to deal with, obviously. So that's very cool. Okay, cool. This is the first Cali Ice Miraidon team, right? This is a team that I think was on some people's radars. All right. So interesting. All right, so we have a pretty typical Miraidon here with choice specs. A choice Scarf Urshifu, a Pelipper with Wide Guard and Tailwind. And then we got a Calyrex Ice Rider set up as you'd expect it to be. You know, this actually looks like the oh, you know what this looks like? This looks like the old school Cali Ice team that had like Raging Bolt, but instead of Raging Bolt, they just have Miraidon here. Which makes sense. I mean, Miraidon, I think, works pretty well with the Cali Ice. It's got good coverage. Electric and Ice is very good coverage. And you don't have to worry about Amoonguss anymore, which is awesome. So yeah, this looks like a strict upgrade from that old version of that team. So you can set up Trick Room pretty easily with Cornerstone Ogerpon and Cali Ice with Follow Me and Trick Room, or you can go Fake Out in Trick Room. And then you have Miraidon here to power up your Iron Hands or to prevent sleep. You can also potentially go Volt Switch and Trick Room if you don't think that they can knock out your Cali Ice, or if Miraidon can knock out one of the Pokemon that is threatening a potential knockout. And then you have the Pelipper for wide guard stuff, or, you know, sometimes you just lead Pelipper or Urshifu, and that duo alone is threatening a lot of damage there, so that's another good combination. Okay. Got another Koraidon plus Cali Shadow team here. I said before in my tier list video that I think Koraidon's just the best single damage restricted Pokemon, so like I would rank him over Zamazenta, or sorry, I would rank him over Zacian because he just deals more damage, and whether you're heavily reliant on the weather or not, it's nice to have it, because there are teams like Kyogre teams that do heavily rely on weather, and just throwing Sun out there once in a while can just win you the game. And that kind of looks like what they're doing here. So they do have Flare Blitz. But yeah, it looks like Koraidon's just here to be a big damage dealer and potentially to disrupt Kyogre stuff. Which I think more people should look into using Koraidon like this personally. Because I think we're seeing way too many teams using Zacian. If you're not using Kyogre, I don't really see the reason for Koraidon or for Zacian personally. It is faster and everything, but Clear Amulet or Life Orb on Koraidon is just going to deal more damage and be more consistent. You can also do set Flame Charge and stuff like that to get even faster than Zacian, which is not hard to do when you have all this Fake Out stuff going on. And then, yeah, it's worth mentioning the Smeargle too. So, no Fake Out. We already have 2 Fake Out users. Wide Guard, very scary, especially in Best of 1, which this wasn't. And yeah, I guess it's just here for Spore, Follow Me, and the Spiky Shield is just so you don't have to worry about Fake Out yourself, I guess. Very cool. You have Terra Grass in case you want to Follow Me Spores and stuff like that, or maybe this is just for surviving Urshifu, Rapid Strike, though the Sun would help you with that too. So yeah, kind of a lot of options here. You also have Follow Me Ogerpon, so you could do that with him too, because he's Grass type. And this is another version of the Cali Shadow team. This one has Disable and Will-O-Wisp. Okay, cool. So no psychic type, no psychic attacks, just Will-O-Wisp and Disable. So this actually looks like a Cali Shadow setup basically to support the Terapagos, which kind of makes sense because the Pagos does not have Earth power. So if there's Wide Guard, I mean, these two, if they end up on the field together, they have to stop the Wide Guard, otherwise they can't do any damage. So it looks like we're going to disable the Wide Guard on something like Zamazenta, and then start using Will-O-Wisp on it so the body presses deal less damage. And then you have the Fake Out Bros with Scarf Urshifu again, and your Follow Me user. So this is starting to look pretty, pretty standard now, which makes sense. And I think we're going to see this team a ton, because you know people love playing teams with these guys on it. And I don't think any other team has these guys on it as much as this Pagos Cali Shadow team does. And then our 15th place team is another Koraidon, no, I'm sorry, another Miraidon plus Cali Ice team. And this one, let's see here. So this one's got the Ferrograph from the old World's #1 team from this year. Electric Seed, Iron Hands. And then the Iron Bundle is actually kind of unique. So we got, oh, okay, it's just 3 attacks plus Protect. So speed control and some damage here. And then an Ogerpon Hearthflame. So yeah, this is looking a little bit more like the Worlds team. So the other Miraidon Cali Ice team looked a bit more like the old school Reg G team that had like Raging Bolt, Pelipper, Urshifu. This one is looking a lot more like a modern Worlds team and an addition of an iron bundle, which I kind of like this. I was seeing a lot of teams set up this way, but they would just replace like the Urshifu slot with Miraidon. This iron bundle actually gives you like options to play the team outside of Trick Room, but you don't just like, so if you're going against something like Cali Shadow, for example, you can Icy Wind and your Miraidon can still fight the Cali Shadow without getting outsped. Whereas otherwise, your only option for outspeeding Calyrex Shadow Rider is to set Trick Room. So this gives you a second option as far as dealing with those two, or dealing with that Pokemon. But very cool. I like what I'm seeing so far. Pretty diverse options, especially towards the top. I mean, we look at the top four, and these teams are looking pretty solid. Calyrex Shadow Rider and Zamazenta are obviously looking very good. They placed multiple times in the tournament. I'm just going to bring it up one more time. Really happy to see Terapagos pop off, and I think it's going to pop off even more because I think going into this tournament, obviously people were not so confident in his chances of doing well. Now people know he can do well, so people might be preparing a little bit more for him. I mean, I'm looking at some of these teams. Let's see. Fighting type, fighting type, fighting type, fighting type, fighting type. Okay, a lot of teams do have the fighting type or two on them, so Pagos does still have to make sure he's playing around that properly. But really, when I was playing Pagos, it wasn't too scary unless the teams had two or more fighting types, and that's when it got really annoying. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Very cool to see the results of the tournament, and really glad, really happy with where Regulation I, how it's been playing out, where it's been going so far. But that's going to be it. Happy battling.